Okay, so good morning. I am Professor Godfrey Gregg, and I will be hosting a series of videos on gut health. And today I have the pleasure of having Jessica Jones as a guest to our video.
Hi, I am Jessica Jones. I am a health and wellness coach for burnt out teachers. So I work with them to manage their stress levels, create a balanced lifestyle, and help them to get their sparkle back in the classroom ultimately. So that is me.
The main function of the gut is to actually break down food. Yeah. So, but on the other hand, is that the only function of the gut? Well, that is what we will be discussing today and what will be very interesting to find out. So we need to, of course, break the food for compounds and substances that we need to build and regenerate our body, and also to actually gain the energy. So if you think about the human body, we are around 30 trillion cells, but we also have something very interesting that makes the role of the gut as a function of stress and anxiety, which are commensal, because they are always there, microbes. So we have more than 50 trillion microbes in our gut. And these microbes live with us. It's called symbiosis because they need us and we need them. And their functions are various. They actually help us to break down specific complex nutrients, and also very important for today is to keep the gut lining integrity. Now, the gut has its own nervous system, so it is autonomous, and therefore it has its neurons, and it is autonomous from the brain, so it's always functioning. And what's interesting is that sometimes when we are like stressed, there is the adrenaline surge, and that adrenaline surge, we call it the flight or fight response, of course. And what happens is that the gut stops or is suppressed in its function. So, you know, if you go public speaking, you get these butterflies in the stomach. And what are actually these? It's basically the digestion stopping, but then you still have the food that needs to be digested. So these are the interesting sort of connections between stress, anxiety, gut function, and then the microbes in the gut that are actually producing chemicals to drive the neurons. So there is a lot of bacteria, specific bacteria, that actually produce specific compounds that actually drive these neurons. So this is very interesting subject, and that's what today we're going to discuss with Jessica.
Yeah, it's so interesting because part of my role as a health and wellness coach is to teach teachers about the gut-brain connection and actually how stress does have a massive impact on their gut. And like it was when you were talking about the butterflies in your tummy, and you might feel like you need to go to the toilet because your body is trying to it does go into that fight flight mode. It doesn't need your digestion to run away from that tiger, that fear, which we perceive every day now, because our brain cannot distinguish between real danger as such and then that scary email from your boss that asks you to come into the office, you know. So you do feel that fight flight response, and you know, chronic stress over a long period of time will have a detrimental effect on your gut, and I can speak from my own experiences of that. And not only that as well, it's so fascinating that your gut produces about 90% of your serotonin levels. That is so fascinating, really, because that ultimately has an effect on our mental health, our mental state. So if you have got gut dysbiosis, you're having issues with your gut, then you're not going to producing the amount of serotonin that you would benefit from and then that leads to anxiety and depression and other mental health illnesses. So it does play a massive part, not just physically but mentally as well.
Exactly. And serotonin is one of these chemicals that are produced by the gut, but there are also others that are anti-anxiety. And now I would like to invite you to also give us your experience.
Thank you. Okay, so I have been a teacher for 8 years, a primary school teacher, and during my teaching career, I did suffer a lot with stress, anxiety. I was signed off work 3 times with depression. And during that time, I just never really understood why this kept happening, but it did. And then last year, it's nearly 2 years ago now, I did end up having a mental breakdown, which sounds quite scary, but I'm actually very grateful for that happened now, because it ultimately made me change my life. So from that, I was signed off work. I was suffering a lot with anxiety. I was put on antidepressants. It was really, really a tough time. And at that time as well, I started to experience really, really, really uncomfortable gut issues. I mean, I had suffered with IBS, since I started teaching, and I just thought it was just one of those things. If I eat something a bit funny, then it's going to make me feel a bit dodgy, So yeah, I'd had this mental breakdown, and I started to have gut issues, like being sick after eating. I couldn't hold down food, constipation and diarrhea at the same time. It was just baffling to me. I would bloat terribly. I mean, I would look pregnant. People asked me when I was due to have a baby because I would bloat. Really, I was huge. What else? I would be in incredible pain in my lower left side of my abdomen, and it sounds gross, but I had mucus in my stools as well. And I just knew something wasn't right. And it got to the point where I ended up in hospital for 5 days, because I was in so much pain. I literally couldn't do any normal day-to-day tasks. I couldn't get up and walk to the bathroom, or I was in absolute agony. I was in so much pain, and I ended up going to the doctor saying these were all my symptoms, and they rushed me straight into hospital. So from there I had a CT scan, which showed I had something called diverticulitis. So diverticulitis is a condition where in your large intestine, it's like little pockets, they're called polyps, form on the lining. And what happens is food will go through your large intestine and it gets stuck in these little polyps. And when it gets stuck in these little pockets, it becomes infected and inflamed, and then that causes a flare-up, that they say, a flare-up of diverticulitis. So I had diverticulitis and a perforated bowel, which when the doctors saw it on the CT scan, they were like, whoa, how have you not come into hospital sooner? Which made me feel pretty good about my pain levels. But ultimately, yeah, it was pretty bad. And I couldn't eat for 5 days. I was put on intravenous antibiotics and painkillers. And yeah, they wouldn't let me eat. They said I had to give my digestive system time to calm down and start to recover from all the damage that I had been causing it by stress, anxiety, depression, I'm going to admit it, I had a terrible diet. I was so busy all the time that I didn't have time to cook properly. So I would live on processed food, fast foods. You know, anxiety and depression led me to emotional eat. So I would eat sweets and chocolate and biscuits and ice cream and all those foods that comforted me at that time. But ultimately, it led me to diverticular disease. And when I spoke to my doctor about it, I said, how has this happened? Because he said to me, it's really rare for someone your age, Jess, in their 20s to be diagnosed with diverticulitis. And I was like, well, how has this happened to me then? Why has this happened to me? And he said, well, we don't really know why this happens. Research has shown it's due to the Western diet. You're not getting enough fibre and all this. So I was like, right, okay. But actually, after my training and everything that has led me to be a health and wellness coach, I genuinely believe that it is years of chronic stress and anxiety and depression where my digestive system hasn't been working properly. It's been shut down, and it's just led to being diagnosed with diverticular disease. So that is my journey with diverticular disease, and you know, it is now my mission to look after myself, my health, mental health, physical health, and it's something I'm really, really passionate about, and that's why I do what I do now with teachers, because I know it's not just me out there. The more I've spoken about diverticular disease and anxiety and depression, the more other people have started to open up to me about it. So that is my mission, you know, to show people this is what happens when you are chronically stressed. It might not be diverticular disease, but eventually down the line, it will lead to some sort of illness or disease. And the treatment of diverticular disease, like I said, I had intravenous antibiotics. And after the 5 days in hospital, I was sent on my way back home with some more antibiotics. And I found during that time when I was taking the antibiotics, I had a lot of thrush, craved a lot of sugar. And that's what I know now is that bad bacteria in my gut, isn't it? That's craving the sugar, it thrives off it, and that's what leads to having thrush. So
because the antibiotics themselves are acting on also the beneficial bacteria in your gut if you take them orally, of course. And that is where there is again this balance. And mind you, I mean, it's life-saving to take antibiotics when you need them, but it's important to replace those.
Indeed, yeah, because it just wipes out the whole your colony, doesn't it? And I think it's quite important as well to remember that your microbiome isn't just in your gut. It is literally your skin, your hair, your saliva. Your microbiome is everything, and it will just wipe everything. So that's why part of my recovery with diverticular disease has been taking probiotics and prebiotics to prevent gut dysbiosis, get, you know, it back into balance again, because you know, it's got anti-inflammatory properties, and that's what I was suffering with, was a lot of inflammation and infection. So once the antibiotics treated the infection, then I can use the probiotics and a lot of other different techniques like self-care and things like that to target the inflammation. But probiotics are a massive part of my recovery and in healing my gut. And touch wood, I haven't had a flare up in, my goodness, a long time. It's been probably about half a year, 6 months. So it was a long journey. It took a lot of hard work and research and working with a dietitian, and it was a long journey, but you know, it's paid off in the end. And yeah, probiotics, I try and get those as much as I can in my food. It's particularly prebiotics as well, you know, feeding that good bacteria in your colon. But I do take supplements as well to just give it that boost, because it craves variety, doesn't it? I think you can very easily eat your yogurts and things like that, but it's only got a few strains of probiotics in them, and actually you need a big variety for your gut to take advantage of working properly, really.
I compare it like with a garden. You have to need to cultivate all this.
Yes,
You have
yeah.
the biota there, and it's very important, because the issue of medicine is important to treat the symptoms and the current disease.
Mm-hmm.
But you did an excellent job, because you also treated your gut, the cause of eventually more problems. So it's nice that you take both into action when you have this. And it's also, I think it's extremely great of you, you know, that you went through all this and you want to share it with others, to actually learn and understand what can happen.
Yeah,
You know,
I think,
and you help them to go through any issues, and maybe also give them advice on how you actually
absolutely.
not just treat, but also take care of yourself during treatment and after treatment,
Mm-hmm.
to really make sure that
Yeah.
you have the right balance for your sanity as well. I mean,
Yeah,
you know, so,
definitely.
which is
Yeah,
also
because it is hard. It does, you know, when you can't eat certain foods, or like when I did have a flare up, it's advised to not eat for about 24 to 48 hours to give your digestive system time to calm down. And then if pain and uncomfortable and mucus and things like that persist after the 48 hours, then definitely go to your doctors, because it's likely that you've got an infection and you need antibiotics. But usually once you start to feel those niggles of pain, if you stop eating and just have a clear liquid diet, that will give your digestive system time to calm down and recover. But it's so difficult not being able to eat, because it's just some, you know, it's your fuel. It's what you do every day to fuel your body. But when you can't, it's such a mental battle, and it is difficult. So you know, like I said, that's part of what I do is coach people through that process, because it is physically and mentally hard work. But I am here to show you that you can do it, and you know, you can live a happy, healthy life even with the diverticular disease, you know. So
excellent. I mean, thank you very much for this share. It was really really interesting and also informative. And of course, I would like, so therefore, to thank you for being with us.
thank you for
Also, I
having
would
me.
like to shout out there that if anyone resonates with any of these symptoms, or have a stressful
Yeah,
teacher life, Yeah, so now you know there is our friend Jessica. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
For the listeners, please, if you have any comments, send any comments.
Love to hear from you.